Hey, my name's Tori Whitesue. For music appreciation, I had to research music from the 1900s. I don't know much about music way back when, but I do know from research that opera was one of the first things that started out music. Opera became really popular when the large opera houses were made built in big cities. In 1910, jazz came around. When jazz came around, it was very influential. Jazz was mainly in the Louisiana area, New Orleans, the Cajun region, all them crazy people. With jazz being in the Louisiana area, of course, it was very popular and still to this day is really popular. In 1920, country music came around. Not the country music that you hear on the radio today, but the country music that was mainly in the mountain regions. One of the first mountain regions was the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. That's right here where we live. To this day, the Appalachian Mountains still play the country music as it was played way back in the 1920s. Around 1925, the first microphones were made to record music. Around 1930, the big band swing hit the United States. These were mainly really large bands that provided live dance music for large crowds. Around 1940, rhythm and blues, or as R&B as it's known now, R&B was marketed mainly by African Americans. R&B had a really strong beat and was influenced by the normal blues music. Around 1950, rock music came to the stage. Rock music had a background of blues, jazz, gospel, and even country music. Around 1954, a very famous person named Elvis Presley came around. Elvis Presley took America by storm. He was outstanding. Elvis Presley had people come from all over the United States to come watch him perform. My grandma even remembers going to watch him in concert. In 1960s, contemporary folk music hit the stage. This was mainly bands from the rock era that provided music for mainly the hippies. Around 1964, a band called The Who and the Beatles took America by storm. The Who and the Beatles were from the United Kingdom. With the Beatles, even to this day, you can see news or articles of how people went crazy when they came to the United States. In 1969, most of the bands got together and what everybody knows performed at Woodstock. I've seen pictures of people at Woodstock, and most of them were all dressed as hippies and, of course, doing drugs. There were not many pictures that you saw of little people at Woodstock. Woodstock was always packed full of people. Around 1970, rap came around. Rap was mainly came from house parties in the New York area. Rap mainly had beats that came from soul, funk music, and disco records. Rap music came with a new and exciting way of performing. Around 1974, punk rock hit the stage. Punk rock was kind of limited. Punk rock had a very harsh sound and mainly shorter songs. Punk rock lyrics were mainly really hard to understand, but people who followed that music understood them very well. About 1977, disco music was very popular. Around that time with disco music, a movie called Saturday Night Fever came out. When that came out, disco music hit the stage for real. In the early 80s, alternative rock came around. This type of rock was, I guess, a little bit settler tone of rock than the rock music. Not like the hard rock bands in the earlier times. In 1981, MTV came around. MTV was crazy. That's where everybody could do music videos. MTV standing for music television. People would sit around all day in the house just to watch the cool music videos. In 1982, a very known musician came out called Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's first album, Thriller, hit stage. When Thriller hit stage, it took off like crazy. Everybody was crazy about Thriller. And even to this day, you'll still hear about Thriller. And everybody that likes Michael Jackson always has a favorite song from Thriller. And of course, with everybody going crazy about Thriller, it was his top selling album that ever hit stage, and still is to this day. In 1988, another form of rap came around. This was called gangster rap. Gangster rap was mainly started by NWA, and most of them was around the California area. Gangster rap was very, very, like, I would say, not for kids' ears. They had really bad words in it and was eventually banned from MTV and radio. In 1999, a young man started a website called Napster. Napster is where you could get all the free downloads. And of course, everyone loved that. It is easy to see that music has come a really long way. I mean, today you can just go on YouTube, search any artist, any song you would like. Back then, it was a little bit harder to do. It's crazy to see how music grows, and it is even growing today. Thanks for watching.